Hello, everyone. To be great means to be bold and daring. It means serving and uplifting your community with the utmost power and respect. But most importantly, it means having the willingness and drive to offer your service, even when those currently in power have told you not to. Good evening. My name is Jalen C. Blocker. I use he, him pronouns, and I'm running for student body president with Progress FSU. After resigning from the current administration due to a lack of vigor to support the student body, I issued a promise to you, the students of Florida State University, that I would never give up the advocacy for my Florida State community. Tonight, I come before you alongside my amazing team and party as a leader and potentially the first Black male president in nearly a decade to uphold that promise I made 3 months ago. I do this because, like you all, I've had enough of the secrecy and dull action. It is way past time that we come together to see real progress on campus of Florida State. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jalen. So now we'll get into the treasurer candidate for Progress.
You skipped somebody.
Oh, I was told that Emily's not here yet.
Oh, you're going in order of party. I apologize. Mm-hmm. That's my bad.
Okay, so Griffin, it's all you.
Hello, everybody. My name is Griffin Leckie, and I'm a junior running to be your next student body vice president. Oftentimes, students aren't fully aware of the differences between the choices they have on the ballot. The choices this year could not be more clear. One party is running a candidate for Senate who spoke in favor of prison labor and ICE student deportations, and the other is not. One party is fighting for hazard pay and rent relief, and the other is not. Our opponents are the current student body vice president and a current cabinet secretary. The last time this administration was on the ballot, they made a number of promises. I may be colorblind, but even I can tell that the platform tracker is mostly red. This election is about how it is versus how it could be, about the current administration versus the future. This is about whether you're satisfied with the way things are. On Wednesday, FSU, the choice is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Griffin. So now we're going to get into the movement, and we're going to start us off with the presidential candidate, Natasha.
Good evening, everyone. I'm going to go ahead and give a brief disclaimer to Zoom and any technical errors that may happen throughout this night. Thank you for your opportunity to take time out of your day to represent Florida State University and what it means to be engaged and what it means to understand what's going on with our university system. Throughout this past year, we've had multiple things that happen to our university system, to our students, whether that is a global pandemic, addressing police brutality on a local level, to understanding hunger and homelessness at our university. It's important for us to recognize that as a student body, we've been through so much, but together we have so much more that we want to accomplish. Throughout this past year, we've been able to commit to doing work as a community, representing not only our constituents, but also the Tallahassee local community that has a whole bunch of stuff that is going on. We're able to create multiple task forces that address the problems in our community and provide tangible change about what that means moving forward. We're able to work in partnership and make strides with Tallahassee Police Department, FSU Police Department, and what it means to be a safe and secure campus. And then in tandem to that, we're able to work with the mental health of our students, creating more resources, specifically by providing accessibility on syllabus being approved by the Florida State Senate, for that to be on syllabuses now continuing forward in the future. All to say, there's so much that we have done as a community, and there's so much more that we know we have to go. We know that we have to do this together, because without that, there is no way that we can collectively move forward.
Sorry to interrupt, but your minute is up, but thank you for that.
Thank you.
Now we have the vice president candidate, Colby.
Good evening. My name is Colby Thackett, having the honor to be the student body vice president candidate with the movement. My parents instilled in me values such as honesty and integrity, but also taught me to be open-minded, consider different perspectives, and above all, never stop asking questions. I grew up embracing differences and always looking to empower and celebrate uniqueness. As a woman, a political leader, and a champion for change, it is my foundational values and lessons that I have gained throughout my life experiences that propels me to the desire for this position. My desire is to represent something bigger than myself. It would be a privilege and an honor to serve Florida State University and continually look for more ways to advocate for the diverse and unique communities. I truly believe these are the voices on campus that set Florida State apart from the other universities, cultivating a sense of home. I wholeheartedly want to break divides within our student body, influence others to speak in opportunities to better themselves, and ensure that programs that affect the quality of life are benefiting our students. Serving in the role of student body vice president, I would make it my mission to give back to the institution and students who have left a lasting impression on me. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. And now we have our final participant, Khalil, who's going to be running for student body treasurer.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Khalil Gray. I'm currently a junior at Florida State University. I do want to take a chance to say thank you to everyone in attendance tonight, as well as the Office of Elections for putting on this event. So to give you all a little bit about myself, I come from a parent of 2 Jamaican immigrants, 2 of the individuals in my life who I would look at all of my strength towards. They've instilled a level of work ethic and true understanding of what it means to sacrifice, and I'm forever indebted to them for that. To give you all a little bit of perspective, my journey to Florida State was a bit different. I could have easily been a student athlete at the Naval Academy, and my journey to student involvement was really to find a way to fill the void that I had, which was being a full-time athlete, from the time I was 7 all the way until 18. So my time here has really been about finding ways to utilize the resources that have been given to us and find a way to find out who I am as an individual. And one of the biggest things that I want to do, if given an opportunity to be elected, is to make sure students can find their home away from home, no matter how niche their interests are, and really utilize all the resources given by the Student Government Association to the best of their ability. So I do want to say thank you, and I look forward to the conversation we have tonight.
Okay, thank you for that, Khalil. So now that we've met all our participants in this, we're just going to start off with our first question. And this question is going to be asked of all candidates, and we're going to kind of go in a similar order, but we're going to switch up the parties this time. So movement goes first. So this first question is, how will you ensure that your longer platform goals extend beyond your administration? And we can start with Natasha.
Thank you. So to answer that question directly, I think it's important for us to recognize that continuum is very important when we talk about the work that's happening and sustainability within that work. One of our specific platform goals is to create an SGA audit system. Through my master's program, I'm involved in the master's program in public administration, and that specifically has taught me work-oriented to performance measurement. What that means is understanding what is efficient and what is not efficient. So I think it's the duty of the people who are currently serving to understand who will come behind them, who will come next, to figure out what are the efficiencies/deficiencies of what's going on with the current platform or current administration, whatever that case may be. So 1, that SGA audit system is something that I think is imperative to happen. 2, FSU history series. I think there's a lot of conversation that happens around advocacy, and we're not necessarily sure what that looks like or what are the stages of that advocacy efforts. The FSU history series is to not only touch points on platform points that are with the administration, but to also work with campus departments about what are advocacy efforts that are happening across the campus, so we connect these different intersectionality pieces in regards to sustainability. Again, I think it's the job of leaders to make sure secession is a thing and sustainability is a thing. Through my experience as student body vice president, I've been able to work with students in overall providing more opportunity
sorry to interrupt,
and engagement.
But the 2 minutes
Thank
are
you.
up. Thank you. So I'm gonna ask, I can ask the question, like if you need me to re-ask the question, but next up is Colby.
Thank you. So thank you for this question, but I think we are looking for tangible, real change. If this pandemic has taught me anything, it's that no time while I'm here presently can be wasted. It's not about how we simply fix a problem and provide a solution, but how we can create a lasting change that will outlive our own times here at FSU. So just as I've worked to ensure the sustainability of the sexual assault initiative I've aided in throughout my time as Director of Cabinet Affairs, I'll be mirroring my efforts to ensure projects we've been working on for support from both the administration and future leaders to carry on these efforts. In my role, I was responsible for carrying out all executive projects, and I had access to all the platform points, understanding that the impacts that they made. I'll continue this ongoing cycle of communicating with young leaders to promote what is best for the students here at FSU. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Khalil?
All right. So I think one of the first things I do want to point out is, to make any tangible change on an institution's campus, usually takes about 6 years, which means that in a student government setting, that's a turnover of 6 times. So making sure you have that true turnover is very, very important, and that you have the existing relationships to make sure that from platform to platform, the things you had on your platform that were longer lasting, they're able to be passed on to the next administration. So for me personally, having a relationship with the 2 past student body treasurers has been vital to understand what their goals and their visions were, and to make sure that, going forward, some of the things that we have included in our platform, such as expanding the Council of Treasurers, can continue to get done. I think one of those things, especially that platform point, is very, very important, because in a time like this where there's been a lot of economic downturn, especially from a university standpoint, really making sure you pull together resources from many different entities, whether it's RSOs, DSOs, your agencies, bureaus, and having one common goal is very, very important. I think also, with my experience as a BSU treasurer, one of the things that I've made sure to do is continue to build a strong relationship between agencies and Senate. So with one of the Senate liaisons for the Black Student Union, we've actually been working on an initiative to make sure that more students can utilize more RTAC impact funding, as well as take advantage of sweepings, because most students within this space do not know that this funding is out there. So there's literally nearly $100,000 that's available to students, but the process of going ahead and submitting the paperwork to utilize that funding is daunting in itself. So these are some ideas and examples of the things I want to continue doing on a grander scale, not just within one specific agency, but extending that to the entire branch that falls underneath the Student Government Association.
Thank you so much. Okay, now we're gonna start off with the presidential candidate for Progress. So Jalen.
Yeah, so as amazing as it would be to see our platform persist for years to come, a true leader recognizes that real power lies within the people, not the person or the administration. And so if we are to consider ourselves real leaders, our work should not be solely to push our platform year after year, as we have seen so many times before, but dismantle the systems of oppression and suppression that prevent student voices from being heard, so that executive platforms can change to meet the needs of the changing student body. That is how you bring sustainable change, by supporting and empowering students to be active in their communities and make their voice heard. While serving as the Secretary of Student Engagement, I advocated for national elections to be a university holiday, to be told by leaders of the current administration that it can't be done and would have to be planned years in advance. In addition to that, I became tired of seeing the same 10 student leaders highlighted and spotlighted on our SGA social media, so I created an entire recognition piece to uplift the work of our student body. And to this day, the current administration, which includes those running at the top of the ticket of the opposing party, has yet to release it. And yet they stand on a platform to celebrate student achievements. Hashtag release the recognition. If we truly honor our students, let's see it. My first promise to all of those who are viewing is that a Blocker-Lecky-Bowden administration will not be using the hashtag bringing SGA to you, because we recognize that you all are already 10 toes down serving in your communities. You all are SGA. You are the ones inspiring future leaders and cultivating fun at our institution. So if we want to see continued and lasting change at our university, the first order of business is investing in the student body and creating spaces that they can boldly and uniquely be themselves. And quite honestly, our treasurer, Emily, is right now in a Black and Jewish cohort modeling those exact things. So give it up for my sister and my friend, Emily, for that. Thank you.
Thank you for that. I was messaged just as a reminder, when we're answering these questions, like just to recall like the decorum rules. If you want to call out institutions as a whole, that's fine. Just like calling out certain individuals. Jalen, I don't believe you did that, but just for all of us to keep in mind, like as we're getting through this, that leads us in to Griffin. If you want to go next.
Yes, sorry. This election will determine the team of leaders that will guide our student body out of the most difficult period for student life in decades. We're in a time of crisis, and Jalen, Emily, and I are stepping up to meet the moment. That's why we're taking on some of the most important issues of our time. UFSGA was able to provide $500 $100,000 in rent relief to their student body, but the current administration hasn't gotten it done. We can't let UF be better at football and student government. We will fight to ensure that students no longer have to balance work with school, overdue rent payments, and affording groceries. When President Thrasher was given a $350,000 bonus during a pandemic, while our school was laying off student workers, the current administration did little to oppose it, despite the fact that they had a vote in the decision. FSU continues to invest in fossil fuels, while our counterparts above us in the rankings have stopped. The point is that in these times, what our leaders prioritize will have an impact on the student body for years. We are running because we believe our opponents, who are the current administration, are failing to do what's necessary during this crisis. Thank you.
Thank you for that. And finally, we have the individual president candidate, John Alvarez. I'm gonna let you go second, John. Sorry, made you go last. We're gonna switch it up next time.
Gotcha. And then, Madam Supervisor, if you could please repeat the question again for the audience.
How will you ensure that your longer platform goals extend beyond your administration?
Well, in order for anything to last past my administration, I'd actually have to do something first to begin with, which sadly I cannot say has been the case for many administrations in recent years at FSU. In fact, as some other candidates have already alluded to, the answers of either institutionalizing these goals into our statutes or establishing new cultural standards within the student government, those arguments fall flat on their faces once you take a moment to peek behind the curtain and see how the student government is already operating. We find regularly that it is one statutory standard for one institution and a whole other one for another. Whether it be about advertising the events and timing of public meetings or publishing of so-called public records, there always seems to be some kind of
Just a reminder,
force.
like, let's kind of keep it a little more.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
But in these instances of statutory enforcement, there seems to be a coincidental force that determines that those who are in power or have influence need not abide by them. But those who are already susceptible, who are just getting their start, bear the brunt of those collective failures. Now, of course, we could also speak of acknowledging yesterday, which is ironic given the fact that the executive administration not only vetoed the Indigenous Land Acknowledgement Act, but they listed that veto as an initiative, a specific initiative on their initiative tracker. But hey, maybe when we say yesterday, we literally mean the 1 day ago. As the parliamentarian of the Senate, I learned that even when precedence is a powerful reminder of the work of the past, it means nothing when the knowledge and will to follow through is not present. Understanding our laws and practices is not for everyone, but I can only hope that those who serve at the top may at least give them a passing glance. Thank you.
Thank you, John. So for our second question that we're going to ask all of the candidates, we're going to start with progress for this one. So we're going to start with Jalen. And the question is, what experiences do you have that qualify you for the office that you're running for?
Yeah, so thank you for that. Just like other leaders, I don't know how I found time to do it, but during my time at FSU, I have served in an RSO, an executive program, a bureau, 2 subsectors of the Division of Student Affairs, an agency, and an executive cabinet. And I was also the sole writer of the founding document of the Movement 850, a community social justice organization. But I understand that those titles in themselves mean absolutely nothing if the work behind them is empty. When serving with 850, I stood across the street from the Florida Capitol with students and members of the Tallahassee Community Action Committee and protested against the over-policing of our communities. Before even making it to the Capitol, hundreds of officers from various agencies descended on that peaceful protest. To this day, my ears are filled with the cries of many of my community members as the human chain was broken. I still see the shoes and other belongings laying barren on Monroe Street as a result of the aftermath. But despite all of that, I stayed there. I stood with my community, and I would without a doubt do it again, because I've come to understand that when the systems fail us, all we have is each other. And if they refuse to serve you, you best believe that I will. My last crying words to the perpetrators that day were, the same way that y'all show up ready, we're gonna show up ready. Understanding the power and influence that FSU has in the community, this is us showing up ready. And this is why I commend my running mate and now friend Griffin for introducing the idea of the Black New Deal to our party. So what experiences do I have that qualify me for this position? Outside of the cute and fluffy titles, I will always and have always shown up for my community from the beginning to the beautiful or bitter end. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Senator Griffin, not Senator, I guess Vice Presidential Candidate Griffin, if you want to jump in on that.
Used to be a senator. So hello, I served as a student senator for 2 years and chaired the Senate's most powerful committee for a full year. This means that I have a 2-year-long record of fighting for the solutions and communities that I'm talking about right now. When Nazi flags were being sold on our campus, I passed a resolution denouncing the vendor and publicly spoke about it in the newspaper to raise awareness. I spoke to the Board of Trustees about their investments in fossil fuels and went head to head with the trustee who is an oil billionaire. I worked with agency leaders to sponsor a bill to give every agency the option to have a delegate to the Senate. I've worked to denounce the use of sweatshop labor and prison slave labor. I've always voted to support our agencies financially. During the pandemic, I founded the SGA Coronavirus Task Force, where we gave money to student first responders and fought for greater student support. I voted to remove Jack Denton twice and kept in constant contact with leaders in the Pride community about how to turn their concerns into actionable SGA solutions. As my friend Jalen likes to say, may the work I've done speak for me. You can look at my voting record, at the bills I've passed, at the communities I've worked with. I'm qualified because I've proven my effectiveness in getting results for the student body over the years, and I've consistently stood up for the same issues and values I'm talking about now. Thank you.
Okay, so now we're gonna get into John, if you wanna give your response.
Thank you. I had the distinct honor of serving as an independent senator for 2.5 years, where I was able to write and present over 100 bills, resolutions, and constitutional amendments for consideration by the Senate. And oddly enough, some of those had even passed. During my time of service, I was able to witness and fight against the forces of those who took themselves too seriously, and was able to create and chair the Senate Meme Caucus to try and bring down some of these wannabe politicians down to earth. By the end of my service in the legislature, I was honored to be the first and only openly non-binary senator inducted in the Senate Hall of Fame. Now, of course, in the grand scheme of things, this means next to nothing to the 85% of students who either don't vote in or are simply not aware of the existence of our student government. And to be honest, they're right to think that. Student government, at its core, is a failing institution. Its primary impact in recent decades has been to hand out resume builders to those within the establishment or friends of those who are. This is why, under my administration, on day one, I would enact Operation Name Tag Printer Go brrr, in order to ensure that all 40,000 FSU students can gain relevant work experience before they graduate. Outside of FSU, I've had the privilege to serve as a steward of some of our nation's greatest natural and historic treasures as a park ranger with the National Park Service. Therein, I've been able to educate new generations of public servants and ensure that the practice of education and application of academia is done without overindulging one's own ego. FSU deserves a student body president and a student government that is willing not only to serve selflessly, but also with a spirit that recognizes the general public cares very little for this institution, even as we have grown to love it in our own terrifying little ways. Thank you.
Thank you, John. So now I'm going to ask the same question. What experiences do you have that qualify you for the office that you're running for? And we're going to start with the presidential candidate for Movement, Natasha.
Thank you for that question. So I have to begin with my life experience because without that, I would not be where I am today. I'm a Haitian immigrant, come from Haiti, born in Port-au-Prince. I grew up in Miramar, Florida, and I had my little father and my sister who literally are my life. And without them, I wouldn't be the person that I am today. They reminded me at every course of this journey to remind yourself to stay grounded in who you are and what you believe in. I came to Florida State with that exact mentality. Because of them, I found more things about myself that I knew that one wasn't just about the people I cared about, the community that I care about, but more so what it meant to be a Black woman in our society, what it meant to have an identity that's not always represented in the spaces that I'm in. So I continue my journey at FSU. Luckily, I found my family through the care department, and that community, let alone, reminded me when the going gets tough, you're reminded that you always have a community that is there for you. And when you feel like that you're being criticized or you feel like you're not enough, lean into that community because you'll always be reminded because you're more than enough. And from there, that continued in my leadership experience. I started with the NAACP. I had the opportunity to serve as chapter president. Y'all have to admit, I did not know if I could do it. But if it wasn't for Tiffany Dina Lofton, she is the national director. She taught me what it meant to be a passionate woman in leadership. She taught him what it meant to be scrutinized and criticized, but to keep your head up, to remind yourself that your crown is on your head. And from there, I continued my involvement at FSU, but I'm not going to sit here and list my resume because that's not the point of any of this. The point is to talk about what tangibles have we been able to create as a community. Without y'all that are on this call right now, I wouldn't be where I am today. We wouldn't be where we are today as a community because we recognize the people who came before us 4 years ago aren't here. So I led my work in BSU as the professional development chair, continued on with the Office of Governmental Affairs, working on legislation that impacted the Black community and other communities at FSU. And then more importantly, I had the opportunity have the opportunity to serve as student body vice president right now through some would argue one of the
time is up, but thank you so much for that answer.
Thank you.
Now we have the vice presidential candidate, Colby.
Thank you. So throughout my tenure at Florida State, I've had the privilege of engaging with and learning from a plethora of people and communities. My role outside of student government has allowed me to gain a unique understanding and a grasp on the student life and culture of campus. Holding over 42,000 students, Florida State University must cater to various needs of individuals. But before my time in student government, I served as the vice president of Kappa Alpha Theta, where I ensured the safety and support of over 250 members utilizing risk management training. But after experiencing a sudden tragedy of a loss of a very dear friend and a sister of my chapter, I had to step up as acting president and take on not only the responsibilities of my own position, but taking the mantle on leading the chapter itself during this unforeseen time. Through this experience, I truly understood what it meant to be a leader. It's not to serve myself, but to serve my community. Expanding outside my chapter, I've been able to interact with diverse sectors of campus, gaining a new experience with each place I go. I have learned how to advocate for the arts through my time in the ballet dancers at FSU. I have learned how students prefer to be engaged while working to promote Market Wednesday while serving on the union board. I've learned how small RSOs can be supported by meeting over a dozen this year alone. Furthermore, as Director of Cabinet Affairs, I've had the privilege of working with and leading the secretaries of the executive branch, aiding their efforts to make change on campus. Our team has been able to increase accessibility for transportation, mental health, and student advocacy resources to appear on all student campus accounts, creating an accessible location for SGA events to be easily reached, and so much more. Being a part of these projects, I've learned how to operate and utilize my network on campus to make impactful change. I know how to connect to campus. I know how to lead projects within student government. I know how to dedicate myself, though, to students. Thank you.
Thank you for that. And finally, we have Khalil, who's the student body treasurer candidate.
If you don't mind, on the last candidate going, I would love to let the crowd hear the question again.
Yeah, no problem. How will you ensure that your longer platform goals extend beyond your administration?
I believe we already answered that one.
Oh, sorry. What experiences do you have that qualify you for the office that you are running for?
All right, thank you. So I think one of the main experiences I can start out with is I currently do serve as a treasurer for the Black Student Union. I do want to give a quick shout out to Black History Month. But first, I think the biggest thing is within the treasurer role, we do have a budget that's pre-allocated, that's provided by the Student Government Association, which is $22,000 roughly. And through that, I'm in charge of making sure that we present new budgets for the following year to the budget committee, as well as understanding, providing the proper purchase requests for different events we're going to put on campus, whether it's Bridge the Gap, our annual Bobby Elite Scholarship Ball, and even the events that happen during Black History Month, which we are currently in at the moment. Throughout that process, I understand that sometimes submitting purchase requests and doing these different things can be daunting, because I have seen from an RSO standpoint as well, going through that tedious process of making sure you have all the different deliverables possible to see these things come into fruition. Sometimes students just don't want to do it, but having that experience there has definitely been great to see how you're impacted directly through student government, as well as my experience outside as an RSO. So my first 2 years on campus, I was heavily involved with our case competition club, where I got a chance to travel to Seattle, Connecticut, and also meet students from all over the globe, whether it be from Europe, Africa, and the Asia as well. And through those experiences, I think one of the biggest things I recognize is that the funds provided by student government, they give students an opportunity to explore their wildest opportunities. And within that experience as well, I did serve as a financial director, so I did have to manage our funds that were given to us by our SAT program, which is the student academic program, which is specifically highlighted for specific RSOs that receive funding more than twice a year from the RTAC budget. And then through that, I also had to make sure that we were able to process that paperwork properly as well. And then lastly, I did get a chance to serve on our local fees committee, which to give more context as well, the local fees committee is the people who they decide how much activities and service fees we are allocated per year, as well as the health fees and as well as the athletic fees. So on that committee, I was able to get an in-depth look on the behind the scenes process of who
Sorry
decides.
to interrupt, but your time is actually up.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much, though. Thank you to all the candidates who answered those questions. Now we're going to get into the president-specific question. I'm actually going to post it in the chat, so I'm going to ask it, but just so we have it for some reference. And the question is, the president of the student body serves as a formal representative on many university committees, most notably the Board of Trustees. How do you plan to use that formal representation in spaces in which students can not normally enter to advocate for the whole student body? And we're going to start off with the individual candidate, John Alvarez.
All right, thank you. For too long, the FSU administration has taken the student body for granted. They know that we're only ever here for 3, 4, maybe even 5 years at a time, and therefore all they need to do to keep us from storming Doak is to try and pretend like they're talking and working things through until we've all graduated and moved on, so that the next set of undergrads can come in and begin the cycle anew. This is part of the reason why the union has been behind schedule well before the COVID pandemic. Hence my support for us to simply stop construction altogether and dig the pit 30 feet deeper. It's also why we never see our university or student leaders ever bring forth anything but buzzword announcements and do nothing committee reports. As student body president, I'm going to make sure that the university regrets every second that they have wasted serving donors and alumni rather than students, instructors, and faculty. They will speak for generations about the raised hell and days-long filibusters I'd introduce at the Board of Trustees, demanding the annexation of UM and UF, demanding that we give John Thrasher another $350,000, demanding that dorm beds be widened for extracurricular activities, and demanding that we blackmail Jimbo Fisher to come back and coach a newly formed bobsledding team. My colleagues here at the debate might tell you that they are the ones whose outlandish ideas will make a difference in these spaces. But I have only this to ask them. How can we trust you when in the last 3 decades of student government, we have only seen praise, not opposition, of the stagnant and malignant nature of our university administration? Not once in the last 4 executive administrations that I have been here for have I ever seen a single denunciation of the failures of our university. Just the same as I have never seen a candidate or SGA individual denounce the anti-democratic Burning Spear Society. Silence and compliance will never win the day. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Now we're gonna start off with the movement candidate, Nastasia. I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name earlier, but if you just wanna if you need me to repeat.
Thank you for making it clear for the record. It is Nastasia, thank you. Okay. Thank you for that question. So directly, the student body president has the opportunity to advocate for students in spaces that are imperative for student voices to be heard. So I think it's imperative for transparency and integrity to be key. I think those are values that I hold as a person, and I think that it is something that follows me in my leadership style, particularly with board of trustee updates, emailing those updates out to all the association leadership. I think that's something imperative that needs to happen in the future, because at the end of the day, we are student leaders. There is a lot going on, and sometimes it's hard to keep up with all these level of advocacy efforts that are happening. Let's be real. It's every day that there is something that is happening in our institution, and to keep up with all of these things gets a lot. So making that information concise and very accessible for students is one of my main priorities. In tandem to that, recognizing that learning in these roles is already a learning curve for people in general. So preparing the next generation of leaders to understand what is happening in these spaces so that they themselves can advocate for the things that they want to see happen in tandem to the work that's happening within the administration. So that's happening specifically through, that needs to happen specifically through tangible meetings that happen with students / focus groups that happen with university administration. I think that we need to be very critical and crucial of the new admin that is coming into FSU. The student body president will have a say-so on how that looks like, that relationship with students and what the standard is moving forward. And I think that it's imperative that not only those relationships are built throughout this upcoming summer, but more importantly, throughout the fall semester. So those the work and those sustainable efforts are grounded, not just in advocacy, but relationships and community building.
Thank you for that. And now for our final presidential candidate, Jalen.
Yes, thank you for asking this question. So number one, I'll ensure that I vote no on a $350,000 bonus for our university president when students are struggling to pay rent. Number two, I would be an active agent in those spaces. This means showing up, presenting proposals like Progress's Black New Deal and COVID-19 stimulus package. This means making sure that I advocate for decisions that help the student body and against those that do not. But most importantly, I will make sure that every time I set foot in those meetings, I go equipped with student voices, your voices and opinions. My sophomore year, I worked on a diversity and inclusion initiative with the president's office alongside former BSU president and NAAC president as well. And it was in those moments that I realized how important it is for students that we not only have a seat, but a voice at that table. I can even recall a time when SGA made a post that featured only one demographic of people and a quote insinuating that America was not built on fear, a post that, despite the negative comments from students, has yet to be removed. I messaged the entire executive cabinet, urging them to be more representative and reimagine this post with more people of color and a quote by a Latin American leader. To my dismay, the first response that I got was from the director of cabinet affairs, and we know where they are now. And their response, and I quote, said, "I think they were going for a tasteful and patriotic look, not to politicize the day. What about diversity?" And quotes from Latin American leaders is not tasteful or patriotic. Nevertheless, there are always blockades to advocacy. We can see through them. But with the support of my team, I am prepared to 1, vote no if necessary, 2, be an active agent, and 3, bring your voices to the table. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Jalen. Just as a reminder, with decorum, it's okay to reference SGA as an institution and like criticize it and stuff like that. But criticizing certain individuals, we definitely want to like steer clear of that just because, you know, it's not that productive. But I definitely understand feelings of frustration. But thank you for those responses. Now we're going to get into the vice president specific question. And this one, I'm going to post it in the chat, but I feel like it's really important because I think what a lot of the student body doesn't know is that the vice president kind of acts as the liaison with the agencies, and the agencies do such important work. And so I think it's important to have a vice president that reflects those values and is really going to put in the effort. So this question is, the vice president acts as a support system for the agencies, bureaus, and institutes at FSU, each of which advocate for a specific identity or special interest on campus. How will you make sure our SGA advocates for each identity are connected to the administration to make the most change? So we're going to start with Progress. We're going to start with their Vice President.
All
Who
right.
is actually, yeah, okay.
I want to first acknowledge the tremendous things that our agencies have accomplished this year. AASU successfully pulled off an incredible drive-in lunar banquet this past weekend. Just an hour ago, HLSU put on an event as a part of their We Need to Talk series. Pride went back to the roots during its Heritage Month, and so many more of the agencies and other organizations have continued putting on educational and quality events during such difficult adversity. The work of the agencies and bureaus during the pandemic make me proud to be an FSU student. Nothing can stop this important piece of student life. But to continue to support this work as vice president, my intention and concern will not just be directed to the agencies or SGA itself, but to the issues that affect our marginalized and underrepresented communities. When we talk about rent relief, we're talking about the 83% of Black students who are more likely to experience homelessness. When we talk about community oversight over FSU PD, we're talking about the fact that transgender students are 4 times more likely to experience police violence. These issues and solutions are intersectional and affect the communities represented by our agencies. It's not just about SGA itself. I care about the things that keep people awake at night, the things that make it harder to be an FSU student. I will structure SGA to make your life better, to focus not on taking expensive retreats while agency budgets are slashed, not on buying fancy name tags while the Senate sits on millions of unused dollars. You deserve better from our student government, and that will be my priority as your future student body vice president. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Now we're gonna get into the movement candidate, Colby.
Thank
If
you.
you need me to
Oh, no. Yeah, if you wouldn't mind repeating it one more time for everybody else.
The vice president acts as a support system for the agencies, bureaus, and institutes at FSU, each of which advocate for a specific identity or special interest on campus. How will you make sure our SGA advocates for each identity and is connected to the administration to make the most change?
Thank you so much for the question. In my role as the Director of Cabinet Affairs, I was the closest person that worked with the current student body vice president. Through this experience, I was able to understand and witness all the work between the agencies and bureaus that the position of vice president encompasses. In this role, I had the wonderful opportunity of cultivating relationships with leaders from their respective agencies and bureaus. And one of the most impactful connections I gained was with Hispanic Latinx Student Union Director Adela Ramirez. Through initially connecting over a casual Zoom to offer support and aid for just their agency, we became closer colleagues and we both looked to better one another. The continued support and attendance in each other's events helped share communities within each other. And the ability to cultivate these relationships like this is vital to the role of the student body vice president. And I will make sure to continue my efforts and dedication to these relationships. I plan to implement a cross-cultural seminar that is hosted by the executive branch and is partnered with agencies and bureaus to reflect our diversity and promote our collaboration for the well-being of not only for each individual of the community, but for FSU. This connected network will ensure the proper support and aid that is needed for the success and is readily available and accessible. Thank you.
Thank you for that. So now that we've gone through the vice president question, we finally have the treasurer question, which again, I'll drop in the chat for everyone. And the question is, the treasurer of the student body oversees the almost $14 million budget, approving all agency, bureau, RSO, and funding board requests. How will you maximize the utilization of these funds by student organizations on campus and ensure that you are being as unbiased as possible? And we're gonna start with, okay, there's only one. So.
Yeah, there's only one, so yeah. I can start now?
Yes.
Okay. So I think one of the first things to highlight is an understanding that with nearly 700 registered student organizations on campus, as much as we may think every single RSO takes advantage of these resources, they don't. And to be quite honest, a large portion of that is because a lot of students are afraid and they're nervous to go through the entire process of applying and receiving that funding. So that's why one of the biggest things, in our platform is to simplify as much of the financial manual as possible to make sure every student who has an interest area, no matter how niche it is, they can actually utilize that funding for their different interests. So I recently had a chance to meet Museum Society of FSC, which is a new RSO that started last fall. And they talked about how they haven't applied for any funding because the process was too cumbersome. But being able to create things such as a financial series that works alongside our RSO 101, which is required for every new RSO or RSO that are re-registering, can help alleviate some of the pressures that these organizations face, as well as continuing to make sure some of the issues that we may have faced this past year with the budget allocation that took place, recognizing that these different things that have happened can be alleviated if we plan prior. So one of the main things on our platform is this financial series of creating videos alongside our Senate Budget Committee to simplify the process, whether it be how to apply for funding if you do have pre-allocated funds, or how to take advantage of our tech budgets, the PAC budget, or even sweepings when the time does come around as well, because these funds are there for students and we want to make sure that it's used to the best of their ability. I can speak personally that I was directly affected by the funds that the Student Government Association has provided, but that's really only because one of the major players within that club, the Case Competition Club, was involved with student government previously in the past. I don't want it to be going forward that there has to be a pre-existing relationship with these different entities for them to really understand and set this process. Another thing as well, it's just really making sure that the local fees process is truly understood. As I said, a lot of students don't understand that currently $12.86 is the current ANS fee, which was created by the local fees, but it actually has gone up to $13.69, but there's been no student involvement in that process. Now they are looking to increase that to offset some of the costs that have been created as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic and the overhead costs.
Sorry to interrupt, but that's actually time. Thank you so much, though. That was a really great answer. Before we take our intermission, we're Vice President candidate Griffin Lecky just wanted to make a comment on.
I just wanted to tell everybody our treasurer candidate is at an event that she agreed to go to before finding out the time of the debate. So that's why she's not here. Just want to clarify.
Okay, so what the next steps for this 15-minute kind of recess is going to look like is I'm dropping the link to the Qualtrics survey so students you all can submit questions and for the next 2 minutes, and then we're gonna look at those questions. It's gonna be me and I'll be in a waiting room with all of the candidates, and we're gonna deliberate, and we're gonna do 2 or 3 questions. So if everyone wants to take the next 2 minutes just to submit any questions they have, just again, keep the decorum even with the questions. I know there's no rules with that, but just kind of be respectful. And if each of the candidates want to message me who their representative is, whether it's themselves or someone from their party, just let me know. So when we create this breakout room, we can include you in there.
Sorry, Ms. Laval, what's the returning time?
We're likely going to reconvene at 8:10. We're just going to have all the candidates and like some representatives to just approve all the questions that people are asking. So.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Did it work?
Hello, everyone. Sorry that took a few. We definitely had a lot of questions to sort through. Into this next portion, we chose two student questions. And how this is going to play out is we're just going to have 1 minute per candidate since we're doing these kind of additional questions. And so then after that, we'll do 1 minute closing statements per candidate. And for the first question, we can kind of do the same procedure. We can do the same procedure as we've kind of done with parties. So we can start for this first question. We can start with progress. So this first question we have is, how do you plan on representing communities that you're not a part of? And I'm gonna ask this of Jalen.
Can you give me a second?
Yes. So this question is
Jalen,
one that I'm glad that was.
Till I get your video?
I'm sorry.
No, I'm sorry. I just can't pull up the people as we get back, and I want to make sure that they can all see you. There you go. Okay, thank you. Sorry.
All right, awesome. So this question is one that is really straightforward and simple, and the answer is shut up and listen. Truly, our student bodies, we have seen again and again, task force after task force, listening group after listening group. We are tired. We are tired of that. And so as a leader, it's important that we step into these spaces with that mentality to shut up and listen. Our students are already talking about what they need. Our students are already telling us what they want and what is required from the administration to support their communities and uplift their groups. And so it's our responsibility and duty to not hashtag bring SGA to them, but make sure that their platform and what they need is uplifted and do our work on that back end. Thank you.
Thank you for that. And now we're going to get into the vice president candidate for Progress, Griffin.
All right, well, when we talk about communities across campus, there's one issue that every community has had in common, and that's the struggle with the pandemic and the economic fallout that every student on this campus has faced. COVID has caused so many students on this campus to have to balance paying their rent with paying groceries, being a student. It's overwhelming for a lot of people, and our student government hasn't made this a priority. Down the road at UF, they've taken drastic action to help students. We haven't seen the same thing here. When we talk about COVID relief, we're talking about the 13% of the student, the 40% of the 13% of the student body who's from the bottom 40%. And as the economic fallout from COVID gets worse, it will be harder for those students to stay at FSU. Those underrepresented, underheard students are the people who need help the most right now. And that's across communities, across this campus, because the virus itself, the economic fallout doesn't discriminate. Every student is facing these problems, and we need to make it a priority, just like other student governments have. That's the biggest difference this election, is one of our main points is addressing the pandemic, helping students get by financially.
But your time's up, but thank you so much for that. We're just going to get into the individual presidential candidate. We're going to get into John. So John, how do you plan on representing communities that you're not a part of?
Thank you so much. As much as my campaign is about satire and parody, this is not a subject that one can joke about. In my experience working as a park ranger for the National Park Service, I made it a goal not just to tell the stories of Indigenous people of the United States, but to tell their stories as they want them to be told. Because they are stories that are still ongoing. These are contemporary communities that need to be represented and respected. And this is something that the Florida State University administration and Florida State University student government has failed to recognize. The Seminole Nation of Oklahoma, with a population 10 times that of the Seminole Tribe of Florida, has openly again and again denounced Florida State University's practice of using seminal imagery and iconography without their consent. This is a practice that cannot stand and cannot continue, and it is in many ways abhorrent that it has stayed this consistent for this long. And so for that, and for many other reasons, I believe that it is necessary to continue those conversations with the people who are being affected every day. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we're going to get into movement. So we have the presidential candidate, Anastasia. How do you plan on representing communities that you're not a part of?
Thank you for this question. I think it's imperative to recognize that we all have different lived experiences, and those are our gift to the world. So particularly as my lived experience, being a Black woman in society, I understand what I go through and how people with my similar identities may go through. I think it's also important to recognize that these stories that we don't always get to share with everybody are very imperative to the conversations that we have. Sometimes in student leadership culture, we like to bypass that part of the equation. There is no wrong or right way to building community. There is an authentic way to building community, and that takes time. You can't expedite that process, and I have not ever tried to expedite that process in my leadership capacities. So listening, hearing what different communities have to say, and engaging and committing ourselves to being better allies. We all can grow in allyship, and I think that's important to do in my role as student body, potentially serving as student body president.
Thank you. Okay, now we have vice presidential candidate Colby.
Thank you. Would you mind repeating the question?
Yeah, no problem. How do you plan on representing communities that you're not a part of?
Thank you for the question. I've spent my entire collegiate career focusing on ways that I can gain perspective and experiences from different sectors of campus. It started out with my abilities to serve in the Panhellenic community. And whenever I decided to join my executive group there, I knew that there was more that I could do for FSU. So then taking on my position in union board and serving as a belly dancer, I gained perspective and understood that there's sectors on campus that are so underrepresented that they are pulling teeth to get people to go to free Monday night belly dance classes. And I think it's noticing and understanding that we have so much diversity on campus, and the only way that we're going to come and unite as one is to focus on our efforts, bring these differences to the table and seeing them as assets rather than just differences that divide us. Thank you.
Thank you. And finally, we have student body treasurer candidate Khalil. How do you plan on representing communities that you're not a part of?
I think the biggest thing as it pertains to this question is just making sure that you give these individuals a platform to truly be heard. It's not about making your voice the most salient voice in the room. It's making sure you understand that if given an opportunity, you're given a platform, and your job is to make sure that you truly understand and you truly take a chance to actively listen to where their needs are and how you can utilize your role to best assist them in achieving the needs that they need on this campus. Everyone's lived experiences are different. Everyone has a different story, and your job is to make sure that you take that time to listen to their story and let them understand that I'm here as a servant to you, and not just to say that when the lights are on, there's cameras on, but truly to embody that in everything that you do. Personally, if I have a minority identity, so it would be very hypocritical of me to want someone to advocate for me, but then not do the same for others, and that's how I look at every day of my life.
Thank you. Okay, so now we have the second question, and for this, we're going to do the order. We're going to switch up the order a little bit. And this question is, do all of you understand and have knowledge about the student body statutes? Will you agree to read your duties and roles before starting your positions? So we're going to start with movement, and we're going to start with the presidential candidate Anastasia. So as I said, do all of you understand and have knowledge about the student body statutes, and will you agree to read your duties and roles before starting your position?
Yes, thank you for that question. I think it's very imperative to recognize that reading through statutes and understanding statutes is very important. And while you're potentially serving in a role, it's imperative that you understand the severity of those roles and duties and obligations. I absolutely agree to committing that to students so that they can understand and interpret that for themselves, as well as debunking / understanding how do we make sense of a lot of these things. I think sometimes we have this perception that everybody understands, and that's not quite frankly true. I think we get into the sense of using all these big fancy words, and I mean, sometimes we just need to use the layman's terms and talk about what does this even mean. So I'm committed to having those conversations with students, having training sessions with students so we understand what that means. And as a student body president, making that more accessible for everybody.
Thank you so much for that. Now, again, we have the vice presidential candidate for a movement. Do you understand and have knowledge about the student body statutes, and will you agree to read your duties and roles before starting your position?
Yes, thank you for that question. I do agree, and I believe that it is our job as positions and leaders in student government to be knowledgeable of the chapters and statutes that we ourselves follow. It's very clear in chapter 300 how the executive branch is outlined, as well as in 900 and 1000, the role of the student body vice president and how they're supposed to use their connections with agencies and bureaus to network and create the very foundation of FSU. I believe it's our duties to make sure that we are completely knowledgeable of everyone that we're serving and how that we conduct ourselves to best fit the student body. Thank you.
Okay, and finally for movement, we have Khalil. Let me know if you need me to repeat the question.
No, but I do want to go ahead and say that, yes, I do agree. I think, especially when it comes to the financial aspects of anything, making sure you follow details to the T is imperative. Specifically, chapter 800 of the statutes specifically relates to financial code. And, also recognizing that, the financial manual that every RSO is required to understand, every DSO, every SGA entity as well, whether it be agencies, really making sure that I understand those rules and regulations to the best of my ability, like the back of my hand. So making sure those rules and regulations, you follow them and you don't stray with them at any point in time.
Thank you. So now we're going to go with the independent presidential candidate, John Alvarez. And the question is, do you understand and have knowledge about the student body statutes, and will you agree to read your duties and roles before starting your position?
It's not to toot my own horn, but I did not write 100 bills, resolutions, and constitutional amendments without having a basic understanding of our governing documents. Our Senate Rules of Procedure are 28 pages long, our statutes are only 250 pages long, and our Constitution is a mere 17 pages long. For the last 3 years, I have dedicated way too much of my brain space to all 3 of these documents, and I've been a point of contact for 4 different Senate presidents, for 4 different executive administrations, and have been a de facto legal counsel for countless of RSOs regarding our governing documents. So whether or not I need to read any of these things again when I almost have them dedicated to memory, I think would be asking a fish whether or not they will recognize the water in which they swim. So I also find it a pinch comedic, this question, particularly knowing the history of many past student government leaders working in violation to our student body statutes and acting as though if they are not knowledgeable on them, that is enough to excuse their violations therein. So I think I'll be all right.
Thank you so much. Now we're going to get into the progress presidential candidate. So we have, sorry. So again, the question is, do you have knowledge about the student body statutes, and will you agree to read your duties and roles before starting your position?
So just like everyone here today, the first thing we'd say is yes, because 100% we will, but it's important that we understand why. The student body this past summer and up until now has wasted so much time, right? Because we have current leaders and current administrations who had to face trial after trial, right? We had so many people, and I really resonate with my fellow Jewish students who had to, for hours, pour out their heart about what mattered to them because someone couldn't follow a rule or someone couldn't go along with what is clearly outlined within our statutes. So yes, I will make sure that I am doing that. But even more than that, I recognize that I'm doing that because we have to be efficient as a student body. We have seen inefficiency for I don't know how long, and it's time that we make some progress on campus, and let's go ahead and push past that, and let's make sure everyone knows exactly what they should be doing and showing up to those spaces to represent students truly and authentically. Thank you.
Thank you for that. And finally, we have the vice presidential candidate for Progress.
So like my running mate said, yes, absolutely. I think that's a very reasonable and expected thing for us to do. I also served on the Senate Judiciary Committee for 2 years before this and chaired it for a year. So anytime our statutes were changed at all in the last 2 years, I read the bill and I passed them, I deliberated them. But when we talk about statutes, the role of student government is to turn the ideas and concerns of students into actionable policies and solutions. We should educate the student body on what the statutes do, but our role as student leaders is to convert their concerns into something we can present as a solution to the administration or pass through our own student government. So when we talk about statutes, it's our job to make them accessible, but it's our job to be knowledgeable and to be able to work with them to create the solutions that our campus needs, especially during this time of urgency and crisis. It's imperative that we have leaders who understand the documents they're working with.
Thank you so much for that. And thank you to all the candidates for answering those 2 questions, as well as the students for submitting them. We definitely had dozens of questions to sort through, so thank you for taking the time to do that. For this final part of the debate, we're just going to end with 1-minute closing statements for each candidate. And again, like just before we get into this, I just would like to reiterate that we have the decorum rules, just kind of keep things as civil as we can. So just to kind of do a random order, we can just start with Progress. So presidential candidate, Jalen, if you want to just give your 1-minute closing statement.
Students, this election is one where we must challenge ourselves to ask the tough questions and be willing to accept the hard answers. Why is it that those who supposedly support minority students are running a candidate that in a Senate meeting openly supported prison labor and deporting fellow Knowles, understanding that those systems negatively impact our minority groups? Why are 2 people that currently serve on an administration that brought us a vetoed land acknowledgement bill selling us the idea of a new party? And why is it that current leaders presented to me the idea that I wasn't worthy or prepared to serve my community as president, despite my proven passion and ability? For so much of our lives, we have been beat up, stepped on, and overlooked as students. And I know how it feels. And for that, among many other reasons, I issue to you all this plea and promise that if you give us the privilege and the honor of serving you, you will not be let down. It only takes 1 vote to truly invest in your community. So on February 24th, vote Progress.
Okay, thank you for that. And just to make things a little bit more fair, I thought we would kind of go like presidential candidate to presidential candidate. So next we can go with Nastasia, if you want to give your 1-minute statement.
Thank you. There's a quote that I live by. I live by a lot of quotes because I internalize all of them, but perseverance is doing hard work after you got tired of the hard work you just did. We have been through so much in the past couple of months, let alone this last year. As a student body, it's important for us to come together, for us to build on top of the work that we've been able to do, and for us to remind ourselves we are greater than the local politics that we've seen. We are greater than the national politics that we have seen. We are greater than the generation that has come before us because we set the precedent for what will come after us. We know the way that we embody resilience, passion, and empathy will lead the way for future Seminoles. And we also know that we're all committed to doing work together. We are not the enemies of each other. We are here together because at the end of the day, the work that needs to be done has to happen for the future Seminoles who are coming after us in tandem to working with university administration. It's so vital that you guys participate in this year's election because we will create change and we're gonna do that together. Again, I thank you guys for being here on a Monday afternoon, Monday evening to be engaged and to learn about what's going on in our communities. Continue doing the good work and we will continue doing that alongside you guys. Vote movement on February 24th. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, thank you for that. And for our final presidential candidate, we have John Alvarez.
Thank you, Madam Supervisor. And thank you all again for coming out tonight to hear us out. If any of you want to learn more about my campaign and my 46-point buzzword-free platform, you can find me on Instagram at JRA_4_FSU. If I've learned anything in my time at FSU, It's that the real university experience comes not from the courses you take, the people you meet, the name tags you wear, or the blazers you chase, but from the person you become. So for that reason, I'd like to thank my fellow candidates for finding and showing very specific parts of who they are tonight. I hope going forward to Wednesday that this election will serve as the first in many, many years where the students experienced are put first, rather than our failing institutions, our own egos, and our own individual and collective lack of original ideas. So I'd like to put a reminder out there. Student government at Florida State University is a joke. It's about time there was a candidate that was one too. Vote for JRA for FSU.
Thank you for that. Thank you to all the presidential candidates for giving your statements and for participating. Now we're going to close off our vice presidential candidates, and we're going to start with the Progress candidate, Griffin Leckie.
All right. I want you all to think about what it would mean if Jalen, Emily, and I have the opportunity to implement our platform. If Thrasher didn't get that $350,000 bonus, how many jobs could we have saved? If our SGA provided rent relief, how many lives would be made better? If FSU health insurance was less expensive, how many more students would be healthy? The thing that has guided me is an intense desire to make people's lives better. I would not be running if I thought the current administration had accomplished that. I spoke passionately about this tonight because I care about this school and the people I've met, and it makes me upset to see us not reach our full potential. All I ask is that when you vote on Wednesday, you think about how your choice and what they will do to make your life better. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. And next we have the vice president candidate from Movement. We have Colby.
Thank you for everyone that came out today. Nelson Mandela once said, "Our greatest glory is not in never falling, but in rising every time we fall." I'm a believer in 2020 did a number on everyone. Some of us suffered loss, struggled, and ultimately felt ourselves at an all-time low. We had to leave our campus, we had to isolate ourselves, and a disconnect was formed that seemed like it would last forever. Florida State is centered around Viras, Artes, Mores, which are guiding students and the community to strive with perseverance. There is a light in every day, a silver lining in every sorrow, and an opportunity for a better tomorrow. We are resilient. We are Florida State University, and this year, if given the opportunity to serve, we will show that not only are we unconquered knolls, but we are very resilient in our hearts. Thank you so much.
Thank you for that. And finally, we're going to conclude with our student body treasurer candidate. We do have another candidate. She is not here tonight, but we do have Emily Bowden, but our other candidate is Khalil Gray. So if you want to give your final.
Yes, so I do want to start off by saying thank you to everyone for spending your Monday evening with us. I'm very appreciative that you all found the time to be engaged in this process. I'm honored to sit here before you today and recognize the incredible task that sits in front of me alongside my team. But we're looking forward to taking it on. I'm ready to take on this task and ensure that each student knows where their money is going and they have a chance to really reap the benefits of these resources wholeheartedly. I believe I'm best equipped to serve within this role, not only to provide the best opportunity for each and every student, but also to make sure that each student has a full FSU experience and they have that passion that we have so much of being true Seminoles. I'm a candidate who will show up every single day for the student body, not only today, but also moving forward. Vote moving on February 24th. Thank you.
Thank you for that. And thank you for all of the candidates. Just to make some closing comments, the student government elections will be held on Wednesday from 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. And you can just look up SGA elections. The link will be spread out everywhere. So make sure you're voting. Obviously, if you showed up to this debate, you're probably more inclined to vote. And I just wanted to give a big thank you to Torchlight for helping me moderate this debate. They did a really great job and they've been a great resource. And they will be providing a voting guide, which will be coming out tomorrow. And it's going to be on their website as well as their Instagram. I'm going to put their Instagram in the comments at Torchlight Center. And they also have a website which has some really great non-biased, just factual resources. And so if you're kind of still confused on who to vote for, or you're just trying to look for some more resources, definitely check them out. And again, thank you to you all. Thank you to everyone for coming out and to all the candidates for spending their time. And make sure you go out and vote on Monday. Make your voices heard, make your money count, and do everything to the best of your ability, I guess. So Thank you.